Churchill writes, Russia is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, but then goes on to say in different contexts that I am convinced that there is nothing they admire so much as strength, and there is nothing for which they have less respect for than weakness. How does your experience in this magnificent country map onto the way that Churchill has put it there?
So I think it's one of the overused and stupidest quotes ever about Russia. It's a mystery wrapped enigma. I think it's just like Churchill overwrites quite often, and that's just like, I don't know. A, what does that mean? It's just like just because you haven't spent much time there and haven't figured it out. I mean, it's actually bursting full of self-explanation and meaning, and I just don't know. I just don't know what he's talking about. The stuff about they respect force, yes, they do, but so do many others. I don't think that's like the thing that defines them. That's very, very common in lots of cultures. And yeah, they do. It is very much about being big and strong. It's very much about being feared rather than loved if you're a leader, or where rather fear and love are deeply interlinked. So all that stuff is absolutely true, and any Russian dissident will tell you that. Like, stop trying to negotiate with Putin, show him your muscle, and that's probably true. But it's the same with a lot of others. That's not unique. The thing that Churchill I think is particularly stupid on is that beneath is that the quote where he says it's a riddle wrapped in enigma, but at the center of it is just a national interest. It's hard to think of a country that is more suicidal than Russia.
Okay.
The idea that it's driven by a rational national interest is just nuts. This is a
Go on,
country with
open up on that.
well, it's based around it's a suicidal country. It's got the highest rates of self-destruction that we've seen. The Gulag is an act of self-barbarism. They're now going through an act of self-barbarism. They keep on undermining their own interest by bizarre foreign adventures that make their neighbors hate them. Its literature is about self-destruction. Its literature is obsessed with self-destruction, with this suicidal impulse. So it's the idea that it's governed by a rational national interest just doesn't all the historical evidence points in exactly the opposite direction. It's a country with a sort of a bizarre addiction to self-sabotaging. And look, you can think about that historically. You don't even need to sort of psychoanalyze it. I mean, the main idea of Russian history that it colonizes itself, that because it was colonized by the Tatar Mongols and the early Russian leadership kind of aped the Tatar Mongols, like a lot of post-colonial countries, it ended up colonizing itself. Yeah, you have a lot of post-colonial countries where the elites, instead of being for the people, replicate the former masters and end up, sort of hating their own country and victimizing their own country. So the idea that Russia is a country that colonizes itself is an idea that's already formulated by its great historian of the 19th century, Khrushchevsky, who was like the historian who kind of makes sense of Russia for the first time. So it's not a new idea. It's been elaborated on a lot by people like Alexander Etkind, and it's very present throughout Russian literature and politics. So that's the historical explanation. It's that it's a country whose ruling elites always sees the country that it's in as one that needs to be destroyed, broken, victimized, killed, murdered, and it's constantly replicating that original system that started with the Tatar Mongols. So it's kind of trapped within its own, both an empire, but that is constantly colonizing itself. I mean, that's the kind of historical explanation, but that's one explanation. But the idea that kind of suicide and self-destruction haunts the Russian experience is, the great theme of Dostoevsky and to a great extent Tolstoy as well.
That was such a entertaining answer, though. Doesn't the a hyperbolic suggestion you're making there that they are inherently self-destructive? Doesn't it almost feed into his idea that they are an enigma? And I know you just said it's a stupid quote and it doesn't map onto them at all, but there is such a romanticization to the Russian people and the Russian culture. You say that their love for strength and fear of weakness is similar for most cultures. That might be true, but is it not true that it's specifically so for Russia, and the fact that it is more so than others in these traits that a lot of people might have, that creates this romanticization that people have for Russia and this awe. I mean, they're in many senses a caricature nation, right? But then you dig in a bit and they're like a fascinating nation, and then you meet a couple of Russians and you realize they're all over the spectrum. I don't know, maybe it's just the extremes are more you feel the extremes more from the Russian experience than you might from, say, the Swedish experience, or dare I say the Australian experience. I'm not sure. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Oh no, completely. That's why we're all so addicted to it. That's why we go there and why we have these wild times there, and why my Russian friends get so bored in the West. They're like, well, I'm not feeling anything. And you could say that's an abnormality born out of like the madness of the life there and the
Yeah.
history
Yeah.
and these, very extreme lives, extreme weather, extreme politics, extreme depression followed by elation, extreme drinking. Even that culture is very, very extreme.
Yeah.
It's not mellow entertainment. You go on, it's very intense. And my Russian friends get very, very bored in the West. Which they so yeah, there's that, but none of that is mysterious. Or I mean, what I didn't like, the mystery wrapped around the enigma is just a little bit. It's just purple prose. It doesn't really mean anything. But then Churchill's thing goes, well, at the heart of it is its national interest. It's like, no, it's not. It's the
Mm,
opposite.
mm.
But I find all nations are mysterious. I find who I find really mysterious, Swedes.